It's been a while, about 3 months in fact, and not because I forgot how often you should make a monthly devlog, but because I made a slightly ambitious and poorly thought out decision a few months ago. I decided that I wasn't going to post another standard devlog until Tales for the Long Nights had its official Steam page launch. Like, what's the point in getting thousands of people hyped up for a game that they can't even wishlist? Kind of felt like I was shouting into the void. For reference, in my own professional career, I work in product marketing. I have done for almost a decade, and I thought that I should probably practice what I preach. What I didn't quite realize at the time is just how much work launching a Steam page would involve. Making a decent Steam page, it's not a simple activity. Making a good one, much harder. So in this video, we're doing a few firsts. Well, actually, we're doing a lot of firsts. We're launching my first ever Steam page, filming and editing my first ever trailer. I'm creating my first ever capsule image, even if I have these Vietnam style flashbacks to all the times I've been told never to do it yourself. Not to mention all of the brand new features we've developed. We've got the first act boss, our brand new crafting and merchant systems, tons of brand new environments, new random events, new loot, new abilities, new ability cards, new units. What I'm saying is that if I was you, I'd sit down with something hot and watch me fall down a 3-month rabbit hole, all just to get my Steam page launched. Why did it take this so much time? Great question. It's just a store page, isn't it? Well, it's not just building out the Steam page itself, it's everything that comes with it. It's writing all the game's marketing copy and creating all of the videos, the animations, the imagery. It's drawing the capsule art from scratch and editing into tons of different store page formats. And because apparently I don't like making things easy for myself, adding a whole new wave of features just to make the game look the way I imagine it should in the trailer. Oh, and there's the trailer itself. I could make an entire video just on the production of my trailer. To get the content that I wanted in the trailer, we had to add over 40 brand new abilities into the game across 5 entirely new ability types. We built brand new mini-bosses and introduced the game's first proper Act 1 boss, the Elder Drake, who has this particular talent for turning carefully planned runs to ashes. We also had to create a bunch of brand new environments, both for combat and for the random events, and then we actually had to build those random events for good measure. Honestly, I think I've developed more content in these past 3 months than in the 6 before it. Partly thanks to the pressure of the Steam page deadline, and partly because having a clear finish line does weirdly useful things to my focus, even if I can still hear my trailer music in the background in my sleep. So in this video, I'll take you through the whole 3 months, from building the Steam page to editing the trailer to all the new content I've added along the way. If you've been following for a while, this should be a really good payoff for you, seeing the game step into the light. But if you're new here, now's a great time to see what Tales for the Long Nights has become. And hey, if you like what you see, there is a wishlist button on the Steam page with your name on it. But that doesn't tickle your fancy, then a simple like and subscribe is the best way to support me for free. So let's get into it. For those of you that don't know, Tales for the Long Nights is a roguelike tactical adventure RPG. Imagine if somebody smashed Slay the Spire's repeated runs and roguelike playstyle with the turn-based tactical gameplay of a game like Divinity or Might and Magic. You play as a travelling merchant, and your job is to gather a team of mercenaries to protect you on your long journeys from town to town through this perilous and deadly fantasy wilderness. You meet interesting characters, there's unique random events, and survival challenges along the way. Oh, and you can fish, of course. Building the content for the Steam page turned out to be one of those deceptively simple tasks, like rearranging a shelf and accidentally redecorating the entire house. It started with a neat little to-do list, write some copy, pick a few screenshots, but before long I found myself deep down this spiral of existential branding questions. What is the game really? What does it feel like? How do I wrap up a year and a bit worth of systems, tone and storytelling into a single sentence that doesn't sound like it was written by a committee? Turns out, even with a background in marketing, distilling something this personal is not easy. Writing a tagline that actually says something without sounding like a motivational poster took me more time than I'd care to admit, but eventually it all clicked. The tone felt right, it sounded like the game, it sounded like me, and once that foundation was in place, everything else, the screenshots, the animated GIFs, started falling into place. They all just felt right. That's not to say it got easy, capturing gameplay that's cinematic but still readable, dramatic without being chaotic. It took a fair bit of trial and error. I had to build all of these systems to allow me to capture this kind of gameplay on demand. Once I knew what I wanted to showcase, and to stop all the GIFs from just blending into the background like some damp wallpaper, I added these custom borders, these subtle frames that matched the game's palette. Nothing flashy, just enough polish to help them stand out on the store page. The aim wasn't just to show the game, it was to create a sense of cohesion and polish. Now the real difficult one was designing the capsule art and the game's new logo. It was one of those I'll just do it myself decisions that tends to spiral. Pretty much every bit of advice out there warns against making your own capsule art. It's, Reddit posts, devlogs, internet marketing gurus, they all say the same thing. Don't do it. Hire a pro, don't risk it, which is fair if you're winging it in Microsoft Paint. And you know what? I'm cheap. I didn't want to pay $800 for a capsule, but you know what? I've got a background in marketing and design, a degree to prove it, and more than a bit of experience with vector art, which was the style I would have paid someone to do anyways. So I figured, why not ignore all of this perfectly good advice and just try anyway? And you know what? Honestly, I'm really glad I did. Creating the artwork became this oddly satisfying experience in distilling the game's identity into a single image. Not just something that looked good, but something that evoked the feel of the game that I wanted. In very much the same way that I went completely overboard building my main menu for vibes, I didn't want the capsule to be hyper-literal. I didn't want to add in tons of characters or the grid or anything that would really explain the game step by step, as is often recommended. The game, it has a name that's quite disconnected from the actual gameplay loop, so I thought I'd lean into that and make something pretty that makes you wonder what the game is rather than telling you bluntly from the off. And you know what? It is beautiful. It does entice you, and it does stand out. I'm really proud of it. I think that with the name, the capsule, it works. It really works. The logo was its own journey. I'd been tinkering with versions of it for the better part of a year now, refining the shapes, tweaking proportions, staring at letter forms like they'd personally insulted me, and now felt like the right time to land it all properly. I actually have every single version of the logo that I've ever made. It's been really interesting looking back at how the design has evolved. Each iteration is a little snapshot of where the game and my own expectations and skills were at that point in time, from prototyping to really thinking I'd nailed it, to realizing I really hadn't, to today. And now this logo, it sits proudly at the top of the Steam page. It's clean, it's bold, it's enticing, hopefully like the game itself. I'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so maybe let me know down in the comments if you think I've hit the mark. Now, once I started actually mapping out the trailer, it became very apparent very quickly that I actually didn't have everything that I needed to make it, or at least not to the good-looking standard that I wanted for a trailer. The structure was all there, the systems were all in place, but visually, it lacked the kind of punch a trailer needs. So In a slightly backwards twist, we ended up building a whole load of new features just to make the footage work. It's probably not how you're supposed to do things, but it worked, and the game's far better for it because we had to develop so many new things for the trailer to look good. Number one was redesigning the ability art, and it turned into its own little side quest. What started as a quick visual refresh somehow became this full overhaul of an entire card system. There was new frames, 100 or so new icons, new everything. I built 10 distinct card backings, one for each different ability class, and then went ahead and designed around 100 new icons to go with them. Did I need all 100 for the trailer? Absolutely not, but once you're in that deep, there's something really satisfying about just getting the whole lot done. You can probably see how this turned into a 3-month project. The cards themselves aren't there to make it feel like a card battler, because it's not. But they do a great job of presenting these abilities in a clean, collectible way during each run. And because I couldn't help myself, I also added a bit more fanfare to the moment that you unlock one in the game. Flashier animations, better sound, just enough oomph to make getting a rare card feel like a run maker. The Act 1 boss was another unexpected, massive undertaking. In each act in the game, you'll have a random mid-act boss and a proper end-act boss. Not to mention all of the little mini-bosses that crop up along the way, but for the trailer, I wanted something visually striking that said, yeah, this is a fantasy game, without needing to explain it. So I created the Elder Drake. This meant creating the most intricate environment that I've made so far. A scorched and abandoned mine full of sparks, lava, and rolling mine carts. And it looks bloody brilliant, but it wasn't just for show. I also had to rebuild a lot of the game's tile system so that the game knew how to handle multi-tile enemies and could use a custom directional ability targeting for these new larger bosses. You know, the Elder Drake is all about movement and pressure. It's essentially a DPS check disguised as a dance, one where standing still gets you incinerated. He's the simplest boss you could meet in Act 1, but he's still demanding enough to make sure that you're really paying attention. Naturally, it came with a whole load of new effects and animations and sound design, you know. He's the whole centerpiece of the new trailer, and honestly, he earns it. And to give the trailer a real sense of space, we needed new diverse environments that felt up to scratch. You know, varied, well-textured, unmistakably somewhere in the game. So we set about building a whole range of new combat arenas tailored to the current terrain type, but just adding a bit of variance. We don't want the same thing over and over again in the trailer. There's the new collapsed road scene. I'm just going to fly through them because there's so many. A much larger forest combat environment, the mountain past landslides. I've renovated the old forest maps to feature new towering redwood trees. We also added new farmland combat environments, as well as a coastline battleground where you meet the new Tempest Elemental mini-boss. Beyond just the combat, I had to build out several new event environments too. The Overgrown Chest event now takes place in this overgrown ruined house in the wilderness. The new Twisted Forge feels dark and claustrophobic and can be found in the same caves and tunnels as the Elder Drake. And the new Walled Sanctuary Chapel event has grown into this full multi-phase encounter with some branching paths, tactical choices, and a few fights thrown in. These larger events will be rarer than the standard single-choice events, but they're there to help the world feel a little bit more alive, to stop everything feeling like a sequence of random events and dice rolls. Oh, and because I can't be trusted with my own time, or scoping a project realistically, there's also a new occupied town combat map that will be used with the new infested sewer combat map, and they'll probably feature in the next large multi-phase event that I build. Keep in mind, all of this was just for the trailer, but once the new environments were in place, the events themselves needed creating so I could showcase them, and that included all of the technical functionality in the background. and that was a lot. One of my favorite additions is the event spinner. It's this small piece of UI that adds just enough luck and randomness to keep things interesting, without turning every single choice into a flat coin toss. But more importantly, these events are influenced by the makeup of your party. Each event has boosted success chances based on the units that you've hired. Bringing an infiltrator or a trickster into the overgrown chest event will up your odds of a clean lockpick. Take a priest into the sanctuary and you might uncover something that others would miss. Bring a barbarian and you might get a better chance with the twisted forge. It's a subtle way of rewarding your recruitment and adding a bit more grounding to each of your decisions, making it feel like you've got an impact on these systems rather than them just being identical each time. Deep breath, we're almost there. Crafting and merchants also got a full rework, partly because they needed it and partly because I wanted them to look really good in the screenshots. The old versions, they did the job, but they didn't exactly photograph well. So we built a new UI for both systems, cleaner and more in line with the rest of the game's visual identity. Crafting now has a proper sense of weight to it. There's, new animations and sound and just the right amount of screen shake to make forging a rare item feel really satisfying. The merchants, they got their own facelift too, with clearer interactions, a little bit more personality in their inventories. The goal was just to make these systems feel like something more than just transactional menus, something that could stand on their own in a screenshot or a small video and still make you curious. And with that, the feature list was finally done. We had all the trailer content. Now we just had to make the thing. So, after 17 full minutes, I'm not going to delay you any longer. Here's the announcement trailer in full.
It's a dangerous job, traveling the open roads, knowing that the days ahead will be littered with perils. Dark things that would love nothing more than to turn you into a cautionary tale for the next unfortunate traveler. But find the right companions and maybe, just maybe, you'll survive to tell your tales. Choose to walk this road, you'll need people that you can trust with your life. People whose talents and skills you can truly rely upon. And people who, above all else, can survive this forgotten wilderness. And while each night the sun will fade and throw you into darkness, I find that often enough, the brightest tales are best told in the darkest of nights. Good luck, traveler.
$3 months for that. Completely worth it. I'm really proud of how the trailer came out and how the Steam page came out and how the game's shaping up, This is my first ever game and I'm incredibly proud of the project and where it's gotten to. The best way you can support, if you want to, is wishlisting the game on Steam. It really goes a long way for me, but if you're not actually interested in the game and you just like the devlogs, then liking the video and subscribing is also a brilliant way to help out. If you've stuck around for this long, I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next devlog that will be much, much shorter.